Hey you guys, and welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about some interesting things that I have found out or I have discussed previously concerning the New Madrid fault line. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these up into a series of videos, not necessarily just about the New Madrid fault line, but also some other things that are connected to it. And so I think I'm going to split them up into more than one video because I believe that they're all connected, but I don't want to make one big long video because it'll get too long. So I'm going to be reading from an article that talks about the strange things that happened during the New Madrid earthquakes, okay? And when you're listening to this, I want you to keep in mind Bible prophecy about some of the things that are going to be happening in the end time. I also want you to keep in mind that this is just the beginning because these fault lines are like just the beginning. They usually set off, a chain of events when they occur, and sometimes like months and years after they initially start occurring, okay? It says the New Madrid earthquakes were the biggest earthquakes in American history. They occurred in the central Mississippi Valley, but were felt as far away as New York City, Boston, Montreal, and Washington, D.C. President James Madison and his wife Dolly felt them in the White House. Church bells rang in Boston. From December 16, 1811 through March of 1812, there were over 2,000 earthquakes in the central Midwest and between 6,000 and 10,000 earthquakes in the Boot Heel of Missouri, where New Madrid is located near the junction of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. In the known history of the world, no other earthquakes have lasted so long or produced so much evidence of damage as the New Madrid earthquakes. Now, side note, I don't necessarily think that's true. I'm going to have to look and see because there's an article or a couple of articles that I'm going to be sharing with you, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the ones that they detail in those articles say they last longer or the effects last longer. I didn't read it all the way through, but I don't think that that's necessarily true, but it might be true, but we'll see when we get into those other articles. Okay, so it says 3 of the earthquakes are on the list of America's top earthquakes. The first one on December 16, 1811, a magnitude of 8.1 on the Richter scale. The second on January 23, 1812 at 7.8. And the third on February 7, 1812 at as much as 8.8 magnitude. After the February 7th earthquake, boatmen reported that the Mississippi actually ran backwards for several hours. The force of the land upheaval 15 miles south of New Madrid created Reelfoot Lake, drowned the inhabitants of an Indian village, turned the river against itself to flow backwards, devastated thousands of acres of virgin forest, and created 2 temporary waterfalls in the Mississippi. Boatmen on flatboats actually survived this experience and lived to tell the tale. As the general area experienced more than 2,000 earthquakes in 5 months, people discovered that most of the crevices opening up during an earthquake ran from north to south, and when the earth began moving, they would chop down trees in an east-west direction and hold on using the tree as a bridge. There were missing people who were most likely swallowed up by the earth. Some earthquake fissures were as long as 5 miles. And so now it talks about the earthquake phenomena, okay, the little side things that were happening as a result of all of these earthquakes. The first one is sand boils. Now, I didn't really understand what this was. I know that when I first started researching this, I ran into something called liquefaction. I believe it's called liquefaction. And that's basically where the water under the ground is kind of jostled and moved up to the surface, and so it basically turns the ground into like a liquid. And so I guess like if it's extra sandy, it'll create like sand boils to where it'll look like sand is actually like boiling. And when I actually looked this up, I saw that it said that it'll come up to the surface while it's shaking. The water will come up to the surface while it's shaking. Then when the earthquake stops, it'll settle back down to where it was. And so anything that was kind of like sinking into that, like sinking into the ground, like cars or buildings, once that happens, the water goes back down and the earth solidifies again. So it pretty much closes in and locks it into the ground. And so sand boils is a part of liquefaction that happens during earthquakes. Okay, the next one is seismic tar balls. Small pellets up to golf ball sized tar balls are found in sand boils and fissures. They are petroleum that has been solidified or petroliferous nodules. Third is earthquake lights. Lights flash from the ground caused by quartz crystals being squeezed. The phenomena is called seismoluminescence. Warm water is number 4. Water thrown up by an earthquake was lukewarm. It is speculated that the shaking caused the water to heat up and/or quartz light heated the water. Number 5 is earthquake smog. The skies turned dark during the earthquakes, so dark that lighted lamps didn't help. The air smelled bad and it was hard to breathe. It is speculated that it was smog containing dust particles caused by the eruption of warm water into cold air. Number 6 is loud thunder. Sounds of distant thunder and loud explosions accompanied the earthquakes. And number 7 is animal warnings. People reported strange behavior by animals before the earthquakes. They were nervous and excited. Domestic animals became wild and wild animals became tame. Snakes came out of the ground from hibernation. Flocks of ducks and geese landed near people. Okay, anybody who's heard about the comet that's supposed to be accompanying the upcoming eclipse, I want you to perk your ears up right here, okay? Now, I know I'm going to butcher some of these words, some of these names, but you'll be able to get the gist, okay? Now, this section is called Tecumseh's Comet and the Battle of Tippecanoe. The earthquakes were preceded by the appearance of a great comet, which was visible around the globe for 17 months and was at its brightest during the earthquakes. The comet, with an orbit of 3,065 years, was last seen during the time of Ramesses II in Egypt. In 1811 to 1812, it was called Tecumseh's Comet, or Napoleon's Comet in Europe. Tecumseh was a Shawnee Indian leader whose name meant shooting star or he who walks across the sky. He was given this name at birth. A great orator and military leader, Tecumseh organized a confederation of Indian tribes to oppose the takeover of 3 million acres of Indian lands, which were obtained by the Treaty of Fort Wayne in 1809. His brother, a religious leader called the Prophet, had gained fame when he foretold the total eclipse of the sun on June 16, 1806. They had learned about it in advance from a team of visiting astronomers. During this time, the governor of Indiana Territory, William Henry Harrison, worried about the prophet's popularity, had challenged him to produce a miracle. After the day of the black sun, the brothers had no trouble attracting followers. A black sun was said to predict a future war. On September 17, 1811, there was another solar eclipse, which again was predicted by the prophet. The brothers' center of operations was at Prophetstown, located near the junction of Wabash and Tippecanoe rivers in northern Indiana. Tecumseh was traveling and recruiting warriors among the southeastern tribes when Governor Harrison attacked Prophetstown with over 1,000 men on November 6, 1811. A preemptive strike by the U.S. which marked the beginning of Tecumseh's War. On December 16th, when the earthquakes began, Tecumseh was at the Shawnee and Delaware Indian villages near Cape Girardeau, 50 miles north of the epicenter at New Madrid. The earthquakes continued as he traveled back to Prophetstown, arriving there in February 1812. So, these comments and things like that, they are just no joke, right? You keep hearing throughout history about how comets show up and, all of the people, even from way back when, people viewed them as an omen that something, bad was coming, right? They may not necessarily knew what it was, but they knew it wasn't a good thing. And so that's just something to keep in mind as we go forward, even past the April 8th eclipse, because nothing has to happen exactly on that day, which with everything that's going on now, it seems like something is happening every day. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to happen on that day, but you still need to be alert and aware that something not good is on the way, it's coming. And so just some other things about New Madrid. Like the word Madrid comes from an Arabic word, al-Magrit, Almagrit, and it means water source. Okay, and so that word formed into Madrid, which means place of water. So essentially, it means new place of water. And if you look at, first off, the earthquakes that took place in this region created two new bodies of water. It created Real Foot Lake and Big Lake at the Arkansas-Missouri border. Okay, so it created two lakes from this earthquake or set of earthquakes. And so when you think about, because I just read an article about how they found like a whole ocean under the earth, like at the core or something like that, or like underground, a whole ocean. They didn't say where, they didn't say if it was across the whole earth or what region it was in, but there's a lot of water underground. And when you look at the Navy flood zone maps, a lot of the water that they're seeing is going to be around in that area where New Madrid is, and then down south, along the east coast and the some on the west coast. But if you look at it, it's a lot of water around that New Madrid fault line area. Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, like the earthquake is just like the beginning of it. Yeah, you got the ground is collapsing and turning to water, and the sand is boiling, and you got lights from under the ground, and people being, swallowed up, and smog, and that's one of the things that I thought about when I saw the earthquake smog was like the 3 days of darkness, because it said it was so dark that lighted lamps didn't help, right? And so when I go over some of the other articles that I have in, I don't know if it'll be the next video, but it'll be within the next couple of videos, you'll see that, really even as bad as the New Madrid fault line is, so far as earthquakes, there's an even bigger concern as it relates to that. Okay, and we'll get into that in the video where I covered that in the part 2. But that's going to be it for this video, you guys. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I will be so happy to have you. You guys have a great day, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.